News. Today we are talking about the region of Central America throughout the Great War. The countries Belize, Costa Rica, and Honduras are being impacted by industrialization as well as imperialism. The government development of the region has also changed due to the Great War.
It is currently 1821, and the Costa Ricans, along with other Central American colonies, are trying to declare independence from Spain. Now, the major industries in Central America are bananas, coffee, sugar, rice, and vegetables. A factor of production used for industrialization is the exportation of goods. Now, along with that, workers are coming with industrialization, and they are not treated well. Costa Rica's working conditions are not as bad as Belize and Honduras, but workers are being exposed to high temperatures and dangerous machinery. We are currently so far behind the other countries that we don't have laws to protect our workers. I'm going to let Ashley explain to you guys how Costa Rica is being affected by imperialism as well as World War I.
Thanks, Leah. Our little country has briefly fought in World War I before the Treaty of Versailles was signed to end this war. Now in Costa Rica, we are late to being imperialized compared to the other countries. Costa Rica has been under foreign rule for about 258 years now and gained independence on September 15, 1821. Some motives for imperialism were exploratory, ideological, economic, and political. Now this concludes our segment in imperialism on Costa Rica.
Hi, next time you're here in Costa Rica, stop by Coffee McCoffee for a delicious cup of coffee. Our number is 506-872-9052. Have a lovely day.
I'm Serenity Morris, and I'm here with a local citizen in Costa Rica. So how do you feel about Costa Rica being a presidential republic?
It's definitely not the greatest, but it's a huge difference from the dictatorships we've had in the past.
Do you agree with our president, Federico Tonico Granados, declaring war on Germany?
Yes, I do, because I feel like it will bear Costa Rica from the Treaty of Versailles peace talks.
Thank you so much for your time. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Now back to Ashley and Belize with a local citizen who will talk about the government development.
Thank you, Serenity. I'm now here with a local citizen,
LeBron James.
and today he's going to tell us a few things about the government development here in Belize.
Belize is currently a constitutional monarchy based on the British parliamentary system. Our head of state is currently Queen Elizabeth II, also known as the Queen of Belize. Our parliamentary democracy has been formed after gaining sovereignty from the United Kingdom, and this could affect us positively or negatively.
Thank you, LeBron. I hope that gave you guys an idea on our government here in Belize.
Gang, gang, boo, gang.
Breaking news.
Belize is currently being affected by the Great War. During these first few months, we are relying heavily upon travelers and passing ships to bring us messages from around the world. More and more of our men are beginning to volunteer for war, hoping to accomplish heroic duties.
Imperialism in Belize has become less involved than other countries, besides the fact they have men volunteering for their country. They use slaves to grow crops and work the plantations. Honduras has used slaves as well, but back to Ashley for more information on Honduras during this war.
Hello, I am Ashley Hermosillo, and today I'm here in Honduras to tell you what has been going on since the Great War started. The Great War affected Honduras negatively because they were not stable. They have been threatened multiple times to join the war, and the development of the banana industry became the nation's most major strike in history.
Do you like bananas? Well, stop by Honduras' world-famous banana shop, where you can get the best bananas in the world. But hurry soon, because the shop will be closing due to a civil war between Honduras and El Salvador. You know you can miss out on this gorgeous thing. Now here's a video on more information about the Civil War.
They are, of course, Honduras and El Salvador. One thing these two countries have in common is being fanatic about football. Or if you're a freedom-loving patriot, soccer. But do they love it so much they would go to war over it? You bet they would, and that is no bueno. If you look at these two countries, you might notice one major difference, and that is that this one is a lot bigger than this one. However, this one had a larger population than this one, made up mostly of farmers, and there wasn't enough land for them to live and work on. So they started moving from El Salvador to Honduras in search of land, and by the 1960s, a huge number of illegal immigrants had crossed over the border from El Salvador. Meanwhile, in Honduras, it's 1963, and this guy has just staged a military coup to prevent the rise of communism, and is now the military leader of the country. He immediately began harassing the peasants' unions and other left-wing groups, but he's a little insecure about the legitimacy of his leadership. So he holds an election and wins, but then the opposing party says, hey man, that election was clearly corrupt and fraudulent, and also you've been bribed by the rich American banana companies who are taking all of our bananas tax-free, and now our economy is in ruins. And everyone started to get mad at him. Now, if you ever find yourself the barely legitimate military leader of a corrupt Central American country, and you start getting into hot water, here's a bit of advice that has been tried and tested throughout the centuries. Blame something else. So he blamed the Salvadoran immigrants for stealing all the land and all the jobs and ruining Honduras. The immigrants found themselves under attack by the hostile locals. Egged on by the rich American banana companies who wanted all the bananas to themselves, the Honduran government began evicting Salvadoran immigrants who had been living on the land for generations and started sending them back to El Salvador. The Salvadoran elite were furious and protested, citing moral reasons, but in reality, they were just getting a little too crowded. So tensions were about as high as they could be, but then... It's the 1970 World Cup qualifiers, and both countries finished top of their qualifying tables, so it was now time for them to play against each other in a series of matches. The first match took place in Honduras. The night before the game, Hondurans gathered outside the Salvadoran team's hotel, making noise and taunting them. The next day, Honduras defeated the exhausted Salvadorans with a late 90th minute goal. After the match, a young Salvadoran fan, unable to bear her country's defeat, shot herself. Disturbingly, the Salvadoran government glorified the incident and made her into a national hero, and at the next game, fans brought pictures of her to the stadium. Emotions were running high as the next match took place in El Salvador, and this time the tables were turned. The Hondurans had to endure a sleepless night in their hotel, and the next day, before the match started, instead of the Honduran flag, the Salvadorans raised a dirty rag. So great job at reducing tensions. El Salvador won decisively over the exhausted Hondurans, while spectators battled in the stands. Team Honduras fled home in a bulletproof bus with rocks being thrown at them, and the Honduran coach reportedly told his players that they were lucky they lost.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm sitting here with Manuel Bonilla, our dictator, and he is going to talk a little bit about the government here in Honduras.
Well, thank you, Leah. I am currently trying to reorganize the conservatives into a national party.
Now, how do you think this will affect the government?
Well, I hope it will improve trade routes and establish a boundary of commission.
And is this also what the government is expecting?
Well, let me explain. Our government is expecting an exchange for the land railroad companies to build a national rail system.
Okay, thank you so much. Now
My
here is
pleasure.
Serenity with imperialism here in Honduras.
Honduras is currently becoming imperialized by the U.S. Elections have been rushed to give the coup some legitimacy and were won by the National Party. There is a widespread intimidation by the military, and during this time there is an assassination of the Native People's Rights Group. That is all I have for you today. Now back to Ayanna, who will close today's broadcast.
Thank you for tuning in to today's news broadcast. But before we go, here's a quick recap. The Central American region was imperialized by Spain, America, and Britain and gained independence in 1821. During World War I, it wasn't as impacted as the other countries involved, but later during the war when America joined, seeing as it was imperialized by America. After the war, the government soon became a republic, and lastly, the region industrialized a little later than the other countries.